collapsed and the water had started spewing out down the valley. Gibson called to me, "Steer off the run and stand by. I think it's gone." Then he came back and said, "Yes, it has gone. The Great Moan Dam, so crucial for controlling the lifeblood of water to the industrial heartland in the Ruhr Valley, had been destroyed." Later that night, the attackers also wrecked the Eder Dam, 50 miles to the southeast, and badly damaged the Sorp, which, like the Moan, was key to controlling the water supply needed for the steel works, especially in the Ruhr. To say this was a bold and daring operation and a massive gamble of lives and much needed aircraft and resources is a massive understatement. RAF Bomber Command had been slowly but surely improving its navigational equipment during the previous 12 months, but had long before accepted that pinpoint bombing's accuracy was unachievable. Instead, Marshal Harris, Commander-in-Chief of Bomber Command, had determined that the key to success was flying large numbers of heavy bombers with equally large numbers of bombs over targets from as safe a height as possible and at night. Right, before we carry on, let's have a look at this picture. So, this is Barnes Wallis, the designer of the bouncing bomb. In circa 1945, on the wall behind him are pictures of the Moan Dam before and after Operation Chastise. Let me show you a bit closer. There we go. And here is a drawing from 1943 illustrating the trajectories of bouncing bombs aimed at a dam. Again, I'll show you that a bit closer. Hope it's not too shiny. War changes. Barnes Wallis, however, had other ideas. Assistant Chief Designer at Vickers, Armstrong Aviation, he had long been convinced that the way to win the war was to paralyse Germany's war machine. In between his aircraft work, he had been developing ideas for potentially war-changing weapons, including the bouncing bomb. Having convinced enough people that the weapon could work against the dams, Operation Chastise, as it was called, was swiftly put into action. At the time, it was regarded as a great success. In recent times, however, it has become widely accepted that the raid, while providing Britain with a much needed morale boost, was a good PR exercise that otherwise achieved little. After all, 8 of the 19 crews never made it home, an unacceptable loss rate of more than 40%. In any case, all 3 dams were rebuilt by that autumn, just 5 months later. However, the study of German records in no way supports this view. The damage caused was enormous. Not only were 2 major dams completely destroyed, so too were 7 railway bridges, 18 road bridges, 4 water turbine power stations and 3 steam turbine power stations. Meanwhile, in the Ruhr Valley alone, 11 factories were razed and a further 114 damaged, many severely. Vast tracts of land had also been devastated by the tidal waves that had thundered up to 80 miles from the dams. For the Germans, this was a catastrophe, and the smashing of the dams, today still labelled as such. It was true that in 1943 Germany still had enough reserves of water to ensure steel production was not unduly affected. But whether this was achieved, but it came at a huge cost, not just financially, but also in terms of manpower, materials, and sheer logistical effort. On Spear's request, a staggering 70,000 men from the organisation DOT were transferred to the area, a large number of Dutch and French labourers being moved from the Atlantic Wall. New temporary timber-framed railway and road bridges were hastily erected while entire railway lines were constructed, alongside huge walls of scaffolding to bring stone and materials to the dam walls. On top of that, at both the Eder and Möhne, the Germans built entire new barrack blocks for their thousands of labourers. Even the Sorb Dam, damaged but not destroyed, had to be emptied because one of the points of impact was 12.5 metres below the parapet and had created a crater more than 8 metres wide and with damage right through the width of the dam. Okay, before I carry on, let's have a look at these pictures. Here is Guy Gibson in flying kit, May 1943. Gibson was awarded the Victoria Cross, but died when his plane crashed in the Netherlands the following year. And then the picture alongside is, okay, so Guy Gibson second, right there, and his crew board their Lancaster for the Dambusters raid, May 1943. Okay, let's carry on. The effort and vast expense of repairing the dams in such a short time was astronomical. Worse still for the Wehrmacht. It now felt compelled to build elaborate anti-aircraft defences, not just on these three, but on every single dam of any substance in Germany. And these defences had to be supplied and manned. The photographs taken of the reconstruction efforts carried out simultaneously demonstrate what an enormous undertaking this was. It is also true that those destroyed and damaged factories were up and running again in comparatively short time. However, many of the components required were not readily available and had to be taken from elsewhere. The Ruhr's gain came at the expense of factories elsewhere in the Reich. In other words, the speed with which the dams were rebuilt doesn't serve to undermine the effect of the raid. On the contrary, it underlines just how important the dams were to Germany, especially at such a critical point in the war. In February, the Germans had surrendered at Stalingrad. A further 250,000 men had capitulated in North Africa a few days before the raid. While at the height of the reconstruction, the Wehrmacht was facing the invasion of Sicily and the catastrophic counterattack at Kursk. If there was ever a moment when the Germans needed to avoid diverting resources from the front, it was then. Furthermore, the dam's raid, carried out by just a handful of aircraft, played on the Nazi High Command's worst fears, that the Allies could achieve a similar kind of destruction at will with a small force. Moreover, the dam's giant feats of engineering were known and admired throughout Germany. The psychological blow the raids dealt the Germans was far greater than the psychological boost they gave the British and Americans. The Möhne Dam was re-inaugurated on alongside it here, we have Albert Speer visits the Moan Dam. He ordered 70,000 men to be moved to the Ruhr, following chastise many from the Atlantic Wall. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to here. This box of information. Let's read this. Unlikely heroes, an inexperienced crew who beat the odds. Barnes-Wallis, with considerable help from scientists and engineers from the Ministry of Aircraft Production, had discovered the previous year that the explosive effect of the bouncing bomb would be much greater if detonated at depth against a dam wall. Yet it was not until the 26th of February 1943 that Operation Chastise was eventually given the green light. However, at the time, Barnes-Wallis was in danger of being hoisted by his own petard. The time to strike was when water levels were highest, in mid-May and with the light of a full moon. That gave the project just 10 weeks, otherwise it would have to be postponed for another year. Yet Wallis had not even finished the designs for his weapon at that point in time, nor did he know how feasible it would be for Avro to specially adapt a number of Lancasters to carry and deliver the weapon to the targets, and nor had the squadron yet been formed to carry out the operation. 617 Squadron was created on the 24th of March, with Guy Gibson as its commander. In his book, Enemy Coast Ahead, Gibson implied that he had personally chosen every pilot, and that the squadron was very much the Top Gun of Bomber Command, the best of the best. This was not really the case. Gibson personally knew just 3 of the 22 pilots, although he certainly requested the American Joe McCarthy, and would have been aware of Mickey Martin's reputation for low flying. As a guideline, crews were to have finished or nearly completed one tour of 30 operations. Some were obvious choices because they fitted that bill, but that still left a shortfall. At this point, it was left to individual station commanders to find the rest. Les Munro volunteered because he saw a notice asking for crews to do so. He had 22 operations to his name, but others had even fewer. Jeff Rice had no more than a handful, while Vernon Byers had just 4, and Cyril Anderson and Ken Brown only 7 each. During training, most crews and